Hi guys, I just want to say welcome, and we're so excited to be doing this, and I hope everybody's having a great holiday season, and it's so fun to do this with you. Borrow is a furniture and design company for events and home. We have locally sourced and custom made furniture. Right now, we're actually selling some items for the holiday. One of the items we're selling on our website right now is this custom cutting board. It's made out of walnut. It's a real cutting board. It's really beautiful. So great idea for a gift. Shameless plug the product after that, but yeah, I will be manning the computer. So type away any questions or anything like that. We're here to help and have fun. Have a great time, guys.
Okay, thanks, Ann. My name is Jess Edmonds. I am the catering director at Spice Catering.
And I'm Caroline Dilba. I'm one of the event curators at Spice Catering as well.
Sorry, guys. Okay. So we're thrilled to have you all here. There are, once everyone's here, there's a little bit over 40 of you on the other side of that camera. So this is really fun for us. We're really grateful to Ann for asking Spice to participate in this, mainly because we just miss working our craft. Caroline and I are focused when life is normal on creating all of our curated ticketed events for Spice. So we are the ones who create all of the plated landscapes and Spice Supper Club with our team. So we haven't had much to do this year for obvious reasons. So it was really fun to work on this, stretch our creative muscles a little bit, and, you know, get out of the house, and an excuse to drink, which is always fun. So just to give you some context of who I am, who Caroline is, and actually who Spice is. So Spice is a local catering company. We're over in Gordon Square. We're a full service catering company. We work with Borrow all the time. We do a lot of weddings, fundraisers, small intimate gatherings. We'll be doing a lot more of that in the years to come, I'm sure. But since we haven't had much to do these days, this is super fun. Me personally, I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to making cocktails. I spent a good chunk of my 20s behind a bar in Tremont, but bartending was a different beast back then. You know, when you look at cocktail bars in these little neighborhoods here in Cleveland, they do exquisite things. And the world I came from had a lot of pucker and draft beer. If you're too young to know what pucker is, that's a good thing, because it is just, it's not anything that I ever want to have to work with again. So when I started working for Spice and got to see some incredible bartenders work behind the bar at our beloved Spice Kitchen and Bar, I was able to learn a lot over the last decade of how to take some of their skills and up my game at my home bar. So tonight I'm going to be focusing on making some of the accoutrement to make your cocktails beautiful. So making some beautiful syrups and some different garnishes and ice molds. Caroline is a bit more of a pro at all of this, so I'm going to let her speak to that, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, so I was the general manager at Spice Kitchen and Bar for 2 years, and during that time, I kind of helped with the beverage program. I focused a lot on wine, but kind of got to see the development of our entire cocktail program. And so since Spice is a seasonally based company, a lot of what we did was takes on classic cocktails with a seasonal twist. So things like we'll go over today, a seasonal syrup, an infused liquor or spirit, all different things that when you kind of understand the components of how to make a classic drink, it's really easy to infuse them and change things around to create something that's a little bit special and different than just your traditional old fashioned, or, you know, something like a French 75, which is just bubbles and some gin and some lemon juice and simple syrup. So I definitely have learned a lot from just being behind a bar. I have bartended for a few years as well. But I'm also I like to say that it doesn't have to be hard for it to be good. And, you know, you can definitely do a lot with what you have at home and kind of go from there. So just so you all know, and kind of a context for this evening, we have some people who have purchased our pre-made cocktails, and then we have other people who got a grocery list and are doing that at home with us. So for those of you who did get the pre-purchased cocktail, before I make every one of our drinks, I'll show you how to make yours, because all of your things are kind of packaged together. And then for everybody else, we're calling it pick your own adventure. You can make all of the syrups alongside us and kind of do it step by step with us, or you can kind of sit back, pour yourself a drink of choice, and kind of have the tips and tricks to do this in the future on your own. Or you can kind of do a hybrid of both. You can maybe make one syrup, make one drink, and then kind of save the rest for later. So it's really however you want to engage with us tonight. It can be open for everybody. And for those of you who are at home, the rosemary garnish drink is going to be your gin rosemary spritz, which we'll do first. The one with the cranberry is our cranberry ginger fizz. And then the last one is the black tea old fashioned that has the orange peel garnish on it, just so you know what you're working with. And other housekeeping notes before we get started. We're going to have you all muted throughout the evening. So if you have any questions, just type them into the chat box, and Anne will kind of be your voice, and she will let us know what you guys are asking. We encourage all sorts of questions, any and all. We would love to answer them. So feel free as we're going through this to kind of let us know. And at the end, we'll have an open Q&A as well, where we'll unmute you all, and then you guys can ask questions. So we're gonna get started with some syrups with Jess first. So pour yourself a glass of bubbles, which most of you should have at home for your cocktails, and just so you have something to sip on while you learn a little bit. And we're gonna get started.
Thanks, Caroline. Okay, so this is timing up quite lovely. The magic of cooking on screen. I'm actually doing this. So I've got some water boiling right here. We're going to dive in. We're going to make 3 different syrups. I'm actually only going to make one, and I'm going to kind of walk you through how to do the other 2. There's kind of 2 different ways to make syrups. Depending on what ingredients you're using, some needs to simmer and cook into the sweetened syrup a little bit, where others want to just steep. So for instance, our tea bags and our rosemary are delicate. So once we have our water boiling and we have our sugar completely dissolved, we're going to remove it from the heat and add those items and just let it sit. I've got some boiling water here, so I'm going to put in, I'm using just a raw sugar. So really it takes about 5 minutes for this to, actually maybe even less than that, for this to completely dissolve. I've got this thing cranked up high, so it's actually working pretty quick. So most of the recipes call for equal parts water and whatever your sweetener of choice. Sugar is the most common. I use honey, honestly, more often than not. You can use agave, you can use brown sugar if you're looking for a little bit of a richer flavor. But keeping a simple syrup in your fridge is possibly the easiest way. Yeah, quick question.
Which syrup is she working on right now?
Right now, this is so far, I'm gonna do the cranberry ginger in front of you all. But right now, this is just sugar and water that I have going with the measurements that you've been given on your recipe.
And then are all recipes for 1 drink or 2?
The recipes are actually gonna make you the recipe for the simple syrup, the recipes for the simple syrup are going to make you a large amount, so you'll be able to do several cocktails from it. But the cocktail recipes that have been included, those are all to make 1 drink. I know the infusions were for like infusing a half bottle of whiskey or a half bottle of vermouth. That's just so you're making a stock of it, so it's not like you're going through this whole extended process just for 1 cocktail. You know, you want to be able to make a good amount of it. So my sugar is completely dissolved in here, and I don't know if you want to take a closer look. Yes. But I have my cranberries and some chopped ginger in here, and I'm just gonna. All right, guys, we're turning it down to simmer. So I don't want this to be a full boil right now. So much quieter. And something else to note, when you are working with, especially fruits, these fruits are going to release a lot of natural sugars as it is. So what you're going to find out is I tend to cut back on whatever the sweetener is that I'm adding. Okay, sorry, hi. So sugar, honey, whatever it is, I'll do a little bit less if I know I'm working with a sweet fruit. So cranberries specifically are incredibly sweet. I made this syrup at first and I didn't cut down on the sugar, and it was like way too much. The cranberries are fun. Oh, they're done cooking as they're all popping. The skin is separating on them. So once I see that they've all sort of popped a little bit, I'll simmer it for about 5 minutes total, and then I'm just going to remove it from the heat completely, and I'm just going to let it sit. About 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. And then I'll use a mesh strainer just over a container like this. And it's really just pouring it into the mesh strainer, straining out whatever you use to infuse it. And then you can keep that syrup in the fridge sealed in a glass container for up to a couple weeks. It probably won't last that long. In the summertime, we grew like a mint basil hybrid. And so that is something that's really delicate, like the rosemary and the tea. So I would infuse that and just keep it in the fridge all summer long. It's the easiest way to just make a really basic drink, say a vodka soda, exciting. Throw a ½ ounce in that drink and it just adds a nice seasonal flavorful pop to it. Another great one is, and these are all recipes you can easily find online, but honey cinnamon is a great, fantastic one for if you like bourbon. So another spin on the old fashioned is, instead of muddling sugar and bitters, you can just make a syrup and use that as your sweetening agent. So that's really what this is all about. What was I going to say? Oh, if you want to make a really quick syrup and you don't want to have to deal with it coming down to temperature and chilling it, because you really it shouldn't be super hot when you add it to your drink. A really easy way to do this is, and I did this a ton in the summer, if I wanted to have an old fashioned and I had no syrup in the house, I would just squeeze some honey into a glass, add some hot water, stir it up really quick or shake it in a mason jar and build my drink on top of that. And it's just a really easy, quick tip on how to make a fast syrup. So these are the finished product. This is the cranberry. This is the rosemary. Had I made that one, it would have just steeped and strained, exactly like the cranberry. Again, about 10 to 20 minutes is really all you need. The longer you leave it, the stronger that flavor is going to be. And then this is our black tea syrup that Caroline's going to be using for the black tea old fashioned.
And also, just to jump in with Jess too, if you are in a hurry, like she was saying, and you don't want it to be hot, so if you take a hot syrup and you put it into a drink, you're going to have to put more ice in, and then that's going to dilute the drink. So that what you can do is, let's say if it calls for 1 to 1, so 1 cup sugar, 1 cup water, or 3/4 cup sugar to 1 cup water, you can use, yes, question?
In the kit, what kind of simple syrup were we given?
The syrups you were given are within the cocktail already.
Yes. So they're like full. You don't have a syrup by itself. This is like the full cocktail, which we'll go through kind of how to make your cocktail. But if you're trying to do a quick syrup, you can do, like, let's say half of the amount of water and then just throw some ice cubes in. The hot water will melt the ice cubes, and then your final temperature will be more like room temperature to throw into a drink. So that's another way to do a quick syrup. Awesome. Just so you don't have to dilute the drink with more ice. You can just throw the ice in to be your water source for the rest of the quick syrup.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that in. Absolutely. Any other questions about syrup? So yes, all the syrups included in, if you pre-bought cocktails, you didn't get the syrup individually. The syrup was already mixed into that cocktail within the jar. So this is just kind of guiding you if you want to recreate the cocktail that you purchased, or just obviously create it from scratch. This was kind of that step. So really focusing on equal parts water, sugar, and then whatever you want your infusion to be. The delicate stuff likes to steep. Fruits like to cook in it for about 5 minutes simmering. And then you just strain it and store it in glass in the fridge. Any other questions about syrups? Okay. Awesome.
All right. So we are going to make our first cocktail, which is going to be this Rosemary Gin Fizz. So first I'm going to walk through all of you that have pre-purchased your little cocktails. Oh. So if you have pre-purchased and have this cute little mason jar at home with you, what you're going to do is you will open it up, and you can hold on to this little piece of rosemary for your garnish, but you're going to pour the whole thing into a shaker glass like this. So you'll pour it in there. And then I'm just going to take a handful of ice, maybe 2 or 3, just so that there should be a fair amount of ice in there. And then we'll take the top. You might have something fancier. This is just normal. You're going to shake it just until it chills through. So 5 to 10 seconds. And then you will take this little strainer like this. If you don't have one, no big deal. You could pour the ice all the way into the glass, and then let's use one of these. It calls for a champagne flute. We have these fun glasses from Borrow. So you're gonna pour that in there, just like that. And then you will want to top it off with some cava. So we'll just fill that up. And a nice little rosemary garnish it came with would go right on top here. So that is for everybody who made this, who pre-purchased these cocktails. So for anybody who is at home and has either pre-made their rosemary simple syrup or just made it real quick and wants to make your cocktail together, we will do that together too, just so I can walk you through that process. So this cocktail is going to be 1.5 ounces of gin. So any gin will work. This Hendrix is really nice. It kind of has juniper flavor profiles to it, which pick up really nicely with the rosemary. So we'll add 1.5 of gin and 1 ounce of regular or of the simple syrup back there. So we'll take our rosemary simple syrup and 1 ounce of that.
Good.
Do we have a knife for this lemon?
Yep.
Great. We're gonna cut this lemon open and put 1/2 ounce of lemon juice into this as well. On our fabulous Borrow cutting board, look at that. What you think? Thanks. So we'll cut this open. And just so you know, kind of too, so we're starting off with this Gin Fizz cocktail. Whenever I'm entertaining, I really like to start off with something light and bright. This is easy to drink. You have those bubbles in there, which I think are just a kind of nice, bright way to start off an evening. Who doesn't love getting a glass of bubbly cocktail when they walk into a door? So we're gonna add those 3 things together in here. Once again, add some ice. This guy on top. And then pour that into here. And top it with bubbles. So what's nice too, as you can probably see, that one filled up the glass a little bit less with these are different sized glasses, but the flavor profile of the drink isn't going to change too much based on how much cava you put in there. I mean, you want it to be mostly the gin, simple syrup, and lemon juice with just a little bit of cava, but if it's 1 ounce or 1.5 ounces, it's still going to taste great. So don't stress about like how much cava do I put on top. It's just kind of that nice bubbly, sparkling bit to kind of contrast the other flavors in there. And then a nice little garnish on there. And Jess is now going to teach you about how to make something to put in your cocktail that will make it look extra festive as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I love a beautiful garnish, and I love a fun ice cube or ice flow. So I'm just going to teach you what I do when I'm either entertaining or I'm in charge of, say, the cocktail punch for a friend's birthday party. And we're going to start with the ice mold, I think. So I'm doing something a little risque here. I'm going to pull the ice mold out of the bundt pan on camera. I'm ready to go this first. 1 moment.
Should I close up?
All right, I'm good. Okay, here we have a beautiful bundt pan that I borrowed from my neighbor because I don't own one. You can find them online. Most of them are silicone now, which is great. So really, what I did was I filled it with water, and I took all the components of all the drinks, syrups and cocktail garnish, and I just put it in the water, and I froze it. These can do funny things. The water obviously is going to expand When I pulled this out of the walk-in at Spice today, I had huge bubbles of like water expanded up here, crazy. So what I do is just run the top of it under hot water, and it's going to melt down about an inch, so you can actually see all the ingredients popping out. So this is my beautiful punch bowl. It's just filled with water right now because we didn't do any.
Jess, can I come in for a close-up?
Yeah, you can. All right, so here's my beautiful. What I really like to do is whatever your punch is, take the elements of the punch and freeze it into here. So in the past, I did like a black tea and chamomile punch. And so I did chamomile flowers and some fresh thyme. I think doing a mix of fruit and herbs and some flowers. Flower petals look absolutely stunning in this. It's just like such an old, tiny thing to do, but I feel like if we all work together, we can bring this back. So I'm just a huge fan of it. It looks beautiful. It will eventually melt into your punch. So that is one of the other things. When you do the punch, be thoughtful about the fact that you're going to have a lot of ice melting into it. So I like to make my punch have a punch, extra strong, because this is going to water it down quite a bit. You also want to be thoughtful about not putting too much liquid in this punch bowl, because when you put this in, obviously the water is going to rise. I have absolutely done that before and it made a huge mess. So what if you don't have enough people at your house to offer them a punch bowl, which is pretty much the world we live in right now?
But no judgment if you want to make a bowl of punch for yourself and
you know what?
your family.
The week I've had, I would drink this whole.
There's no rules.
Myself. It's fine. With your ticket purchase, you got this awesome silicone ice mold. So I have made some fun ice cubes to show you. Over there. So because, and I apologize, there was really no way to keep these from not melting completely. But what I did was, these are just mini versions. So I froze some rosemary into the top because here we have these holes. So some of them froze and snapped off. This one turned out great. I also froze some orange peel and cranberry in there. So, when you are pouring any of these cocktails, even the ones that you're shaking in ice that don't need an ice cube, feel free to just pop one of these in there. It's almost like a garnish. The melting of one ice cube isn't gonna change the integrity or the flavor profile of that drink too much. So I'm sorry these got a little melty, but they really are so adorable. And I will tell you this from personal experience, when you are this thoughtful, your friends tell you, and they just think how cute it is because you took the time to freeze shit in your ice cubes. It's adorable. So I highly recommend it. Lots of laughs. I was going to talk about one more cute garnish thing. This is something, if you bought the cocktail, we attached this to the old fashioned. These are just,
Quick question.
Yeah.
Any tips on how to make the ice cubes clear?
Okay, so I've tried it both ways and failed. But I will tell you, I've tried boiling water and I've tried distilled water. Neither of them worked. Caroline, do you?
Yeah, so really the only way you're going to get a completely clear ice cube is if you're using like a special freezer. So a lot of cocktail bars that have like crystal clear ice, they have a specific freezer that is set at a specific temperature to get like a glass ice cube looking. So I would say don't give up hope trying, but don't be disappointed if you don't achieve a crystal clear glass or like crystal clear ice cube. A lot of times like tap water does have stuff in it that doesn't make it clear, but a lot of it just has to do with the freezing rate, like the way it freezes too. And our freezers aren't set up for it doesn't freeze consistently. So then the water doesn't all get clear. So I wish I had a better answer for you because I also wish that my ice cubes were crystal clear, and I also have never been able to achieve that.
When you see a crystal clear ice cube at a restaurant or bar, those come from like Elegant Ice or an ice manufacturer. It's really hard for anyone who doesn't specialize in ice to make it like that perfect. So, this is the home version. Is it foggy? Yes. Can you see the garnish frozen inside of it? Absolutely. Back to the oranges. So these are thinly sliced on a mandolin if you have one at home. or just use a knife, please be careful, laid on some wax paper on a cookie sheet, sprinkled with some raw sugar, and just low and slow, 200 degrees for 2.5 hours. And it made these beautiful little orange slices. You can use them for garnish. You could string them and put them on your Christmas tree. I think I actually am going to do that next year, because once I started using these for drinks, I was like, these would look beautiful all over my home. I think that is it for garnish and cubes and molds. So any questions?
The rosemary cocktail is delish.
Good.
Sarah Gilbert.
Yay! Hi, Sarah.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna move right along to our second cocktail. Before I get started on that, I do want to highlight one of the also ingredients that you got, which are these Spice Acres ginger bitters. So we grew these on our farm, Spice Acres, which is down in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Well, we didn't grow the bitters. Yes. Question.
Sorry, just because how long does the orange garnish last?
Ooh, great question.
Months.
Can you repeat the question because they won't hear me?
Yes. So the question was, how long does the orange garnish last? Months. Keep it in a airtight glass container, like the syrups. Just having some mason jars and some lids around at your house can never hurt. These will last for a really long time. And
I mean, maybe even like a year. Like they're not really going to go, you pull
They've
out
been
all the
preserved.
moisture. If you fully dehydrate them, I mean, we've stumbled across some preserved oranges that probably have seen a better day.
Do you put them in the fridge?
Mm-mm.
No
No refrigeration
no
is
refrigeration needed.
If you do put them in the refrigerator, they will go bad quicker because the refrigerator would add moisture even through an airtight container. So you just want to leave them out at room temperature. Okay, so these bitters. So we have a farm down in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, if you don't know that, and we grew ginger 2 years ago. So the ginger root is what most people utilize from the ginger plant. And it's delicious, it's great, you can use it in a lot of different ways, but then you have the whole remaining part of the ginger plant is the stalk and the leaves. So we were trying to figure out a way to use the whole plant and not just get rid of all that, because most people don't want to buy that, and enter ginger bitters. So this is the whole process of trying out different ratios of the ginger root and ginger leaves and ginger stems, and adding different ingredients, and we finally got down to our product, which you all have. And one thing to note about this is bitters are normally used in very small amounts, like a dash or two. And you'll see in this next cocktail, the recipe calls for a whole ½ ounce for two reasons. One, ours aren't quite as intense or potent as like an Angostura bitters or a Pachad's bitters, which is what most people have in their bar cart. And the other reason we use so much in this cocktail is because it is a little bit on the sweeter side. And we're all kind of big fans of a balanced cocktail. I think most people are, but we always try and figure out a way to make sure that you have equal parts of like sweet, bitter, savory, and all that stuff. So the large amount of bitters is to help kind of contrast the sweetness in that cranberry ginger simple syrup. So, question.
What is the process to make bitters? Are they infused, distilled, or?
So basically, you take all of your raw materials, and it just kind of like sits with some different spirits. So it is kind of more like an infusion. It's not distilled down. It doesn't go through a still. It's
like a moonshine. I mean, it's like a raw
product.
Yeah.
It's not like put through.
Which is why you traditionally need so little of it.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of the general. But we worked with Western Reserve distillers too to help kind of take our product and figure out how to make it an official product, because we are not experts in bitters making.
Yes.
There's one person that raised their hands and they want me to unmute them.
Okay.
I'm nervous.
Christine.
Okay.
Maybe, can you tell Christine she can unmute?
Christine, you can unmute yourself if you'd like. You have a question? Or you can type it into the chat box. Okay, so we're gonna make this cocktail. So for those of you who have it at home, you're gonna go through the same exact process that we did with the first one. So you're gonna take all of these lovely ingredients. This is the cranberry ginger fizz. So yeah, so you're gonna take this whole mason jar, dump it in here, add some ice, There. Shake her up.
Sorry, one more question about the bitters that you shake.
Yeah.
Do the bitters have a similar 5-year shelf life to others?
Yes. I will need to double check and get back to that person on that. So if you want to leave your email address, I can say one thing. What was included in the ticket price was a 5-ounce bottle, and you all got 10 ounces. So it's a valid question because we gave you a lot of bitters. I will need to check on the shelf life of that, and I will absolutely let that person know. Do a follow-up.
You can let people know I'll send them a recording of this.
Okay, great.
One more question. Is the recipe for the cranberry ginger fizz correct? It says add a cup of the cranberry ginger syrup.
That is not correct.
That is not correct.
It should be 1 ounce of the cranberry ginger syrup. 1 ounce.
Sorry for the typo.
Not 1 cup. That would be a very aggressively large amount of cranberry syrup. So for anyone who has the recipe cards, our apologies on the typo. It says 1 cup of cranberry ginger or simple syrup. You only need 1 ounce. So 1 ounce is all you need of the cranberry ginger simple syrup. So I shook that all together and I strained it out into this glass. And this cocktail is served over ice. So if you don't have a large format ice cube, totally fine. You can just pour it over a glass that has ice in it. I'm gonna pop one of these though that Jess made. They're on the smaller side, so I'm gonna just do 2. And then this guy gets topped off with some sparkling water. We don't have any of that here. Oh,
Pellegrino.
yes, we do. Just kidding. So we're gonna take our cute.
I would have been fine with adding champagne.
You could also
just
add
for the
champagne to the
record.
top of this, and it would taste delicious too. So depends on how boozy you're trying to get. So we'll just top that off with a little bit of bubbles. And then for those of you who are at home and making this yourself, we will walk through that as well. So we are gonna go with 1.5 ounces of vodka. We're just using Tito's. You can use any vodka you like. And vodka's a nice staple. I mean, most people know this, but it doesn't really have a ton of flavor to it. So it's nice you can really pick out the flavor profiles. So we're doing 1 ounce of this cranberry ginger simple syrup, just so you know. So we'll pour that in there. And then 1/2 ounce of these ginger bitters. Because this is 1 ounce, so this ginger bitters bottles has this nice little, there's a
to do the close up, I have to unmute. So we're coming up here for this. Okay.
Okay, so the cranberry or the ginger bitters has this nice little cap on it. This is for when you just kind of do like a dash. But since we're doing a whole 1/2 ounce, you can just take this off and it'll pour a little bit easier into your measuring cup. Just like that. So pour that in there. Put that guy back on. And then some ice. And if you have a metal shaking glass, you'll feel the glass kind of start to get really cold and frothy. And that's really what you're looking for. Your hand should get a little bit cold and then you know you're ready to go. And we'll put these 2 ice cubes in here just so you can see kind of like a pour over. And there you go. This glass is a little bit smaller than what our cocktail recipe calls for. So that's why it kind of filled it up all the way. But we'll just top that off with a little bit of bubbly water and you're good to go. Does anybody have any questions about this cocktail in particular, or bitters, or anything?
Anne, are you ready for another cocktail?
Would you like another one?
Oh, yes. And let's do the cocktail. This is great. Please do more close-ups. They want more close-ups.
Okay. So now you still get to hear my lovely voice. We're going to start talking about infusions. So I think infusions kind of are this intimidating thing that people get scared of. It sounds like a science experiment, but they're really a great way to up your at-home bar. You can make it once and then you just kind of have stuff forever. It'll last a very long time. You do it once in bulk and you're ready to go. So the 2 things that you guys have ingredients for and that we're going to kind of talk through are an infused liquor, and an infused spirit. So the infused liquor is going to be a black tea infused whiskey, and the infused spirit is going to be a coffee infused vermouth. So the reason we picked those two things, the black tea infused whiskey is going to be used in this old fashioned, and then the coffee vermouth is just a really great way to up your Manhattan game or any use for a sweet vermouth. Coffee pairs really nicely with a lot of the liquors that are used in drinks that you normally use vermouth. A lot of times it's whiskey and vermouth go hand in hand, so whiskey and coffee also are great. We had a drink at Spice, and it was called the Caffeine Man, and it was a Manhattan with this coffee vermouth, and it was a crowd favorite and super delicious. So to make an infusion, all you do is take your alcohol. So we would take like a bottle of Weller, which is what we're going to be using, pour it into another container, a mason jar. You can use a quart container. You can use anything that has like a lid on it and can be airtight. You're going to pour that in there, and then for this black tea infused vermouth, we put like 8 tea bags in there. Those nice little tea bags over there. And you just let it sit overnight for 24 hours. Don't touch it. You don't need to stir it. You don't need to shake it. All of that flavor will infuse in there. Then you pull out the black tea bags and then label your vermouth so you know that or label your whiskey so that you know what it is. Many a times I've had an infused alcohol and not realized it and been like, why does this drink taste different? Because I thought I was using a regular alcohol and it wasn't. So that's it. 24 hours is normally pretty good. You can do 48 for anything like a coffee ground or yes, we have a question.
Okay, I've got a couple.
Okay.
How are we supposed to use the vermouth if it needed to steep for 24 hours?
So we don't have a recipe for the vermouth. It's just kind of something for you to be able to have on hand. So we're not using the coffee vermouth tonight. In terms of the whiskey, I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about how, because you don't have 24 hours with the whiskey, we're going to use a black tea simple syrup in the old fashioned that I make with you, which will give you the same taste in the drink. It's just you can make it tonight as opposed to having to wait 24 hours, if that makes sense. Another question.
I have a Detroit Old Tom style gin that has heavy notes of cardamom. The coffee infused sweet vermouth might make an outstanding Martinez.
Yes, so coffee vermouth would be great in, this person was saying that they have a really great gin that has notes of cardamom, and they said that the vermouth might infused with coffee might be great within a Martinez, which I think would be great. I think would be awesome. Another question. Does
Proof on the whiskey make a difference as to the efficiency of the infusion?
Not particularly. I think an alcohol based on its proof isn't going to take on flavor profiles quicker than others. So it really doesn't matter. Pick your own adventure. But so for a dried ingredient that you're infusing, so like a coffee or a tea, you could let it sit for 48 hours. It's going to be a more intense flavor. Anything, if you're ever infusing an alcohol with a raw ingredient, so like a lime zest or like a lime peel or something that's not dried, 24 hours is kind of the max, because then the alcohol does start to break down that organic material, and then it's going to kind of leave a weird taste in your alcohol. So those are just kind of some notes with infusions. But you can kind of play around with it. I sometimes will just do like a little bit if I'm not sure. I'll just take a small little amount. You don't have to do a whole bottle at a time, and just kind of see. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, but it's a fun little way to kind of up your bar experience. And a lot of cocktail bars that you go to will utilize infused ingredients or infused liquors and spirits, just so that you can kind of go from there. Does anybody have any more questions about infusions? And this one's a little bit tricky. I totally understand the whole, how do we do this with not having 24 hours? We thought it was a really fun tool for you guys to be able to have and to talk about. And like I said, I will show you how to be able to make the drink tonight without having to wait 24 hours, because no one wants to wait that long to drink an old fashioned. Okay, we're good? Okay, awesome. So for those of you who have pre-purchased your cocktail, we are moving on to this old fashioned. So it's going to be a black tea old fashioned. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to take the whole thing and you're going to pour it into your mixing glass. And you're gonna add some ice straight into there. And you are going to stir it. So you're gonna take your bar spoon and you're just gonna stir this for about 20, 25 seconds until it gets really nice and chilled. So the difference between, a lot of people wonder, like, why do you shake something or why do you stir something? So for two reasons. One is based on the densities of the spirits that you are either shaking or stirring. So for something like an old fashioned, it's all spirit based. So you have whiskey, vermouth, or not whiskey, bitters, and sugar. So all of those things are the same, similar densities, and will incorporate really well just by stirring. And it creates kind of this like silky flavor profile when you just stir it. Now, when you shake something, you're incorporating air into it, and so that's kind of when you get that frothy flavor profile. In the shaking, you're literally breaking apart the different particles with ice, and it incorporates things that have different densities. So when you're mixing a juice, so a lime juice or a lemon juice with alcohol, those things have very different densities. And so you need that pressure of a shaking method to incorporate that drink so it doesn't feel like you have these different layers of flavor. There's just one drink. So once this gets nice and chilled, we are going to take one of our lovely ice cubes like that and pour over ice. And then this guy gets topped with, we're gonna wanna do a nice, let's try that again. Let's do a nice peel of orange. And then you're gonna kind of wanna twist it and like squeeze it so you get all those nice orange essential oils in there. And then you just pop that in there. And then that will get topped with a Luxardo cherry as well. That's a cranberry, but don't tell anyone. So that is going to be your black tea old fashioned for those of you who pre-bought with us. So if you're making this at home, as I mentioned before, you would make a black tea simple syrup, and that's going to replace your regular sugar that would be in, or your regular simple syrup that's going to be in the drink. So you're still going to get that great black tea flavor. You're going to use a regular whiskey. So if you're making this at home, you just use, it doesn't need to be infused. So just regular bourbon or whiskey, a half ounce of that black tea simple syrup, and then some dashes of bitters, and then your orange peel and your cherry. So we're going to do that all together, but I just kind of wanted to explain how you can still make this right now. So we'll do, so you're going to add some bitters. We're going to do 3 dashes of bitters and 2 ounces of bourbon. And a half an ounce of this black tea simple syrup.
We have one more question.
Yeah, you have another question?
Can you use the Spike's Acres bitters in this cocktail, or will that ruin it?
Absolutely, you totally can. I mean, I think ginger goes really well with black tea. You can use those bitters. I think a traditional Angostura bitters kind of has more of those cinnamony, they have like more of a cinnamon baking spice flavor profile, which is like a traditional old fashioned, but you can mix it up with bitters. They're still going to kind of give you that bitter, obviously, flavor profile that you're looking for in a drink. Yes, go for it. We're just stirring that up. And then once again, we'll take our nice little cutie ice cubes and pour that over ice.
I don't know why I feel like I'm on the Today Show when I'm doing this.
And then we'll take a nice little orange peel. Stick that right in there, like that. And our cherry, it's not a cherry. And you're good to go. Ta-da! Does anybody have any questions about that? Or like stirring, shaking, general bartending questions? That was always something for me that I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, why do you shake some things and stir other things? And then when I had it broken down to me, I was like, that makes complete sense. And kind of too, when you want a frothy drink, something that you add bubbles to, that's really great. You kind of get that air build up when you shake it. And then a stirred drink really kind of has that really silky smooth flavor profile. So more of your stronger drinks that are just alcohol based and don't have all the extras are most often stirred.
Thank you, Caroline. So we would love to open it up for Q&A. If anybody, it's been great to have everybody interact throughout this whole thing. Thank you so much for all the questions. We're going to unmute everybody and feel free to, I don't know, socialize virtually. Ask us any questions. We're here. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't. Give us feedback. You can email us as well. We haven't really talked about doing more of these, but I think based on feedback from you guys, if you had fun and you liked it, I know there's a million other things we could work through. I myself just made a huge batch of apple shrub at home, which I'm really excited for. And then I was like, that could be another cocktail class right there. So yeah. So if there's any questions, feel free to shout them out.
Yes, please, more events. Jess, where did you get your belt from?
Probably the thrift store.
Jess got her belt at the thrift store, somebody asked, in case anybody's wondering.
Yep.
I have a lot to learn. This was great. Thanks so much. Love this. Everyone was great. Do more. Miss my Spice Girls. Any special instructions to make them mocktails?
Oh, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to mention this with the syrups. The syrups are just a really easy way for people who just don't drink or can't drink. Mixing any of these syrups, a little half ounce with, say, a LaCroix or just some Pellegrino. Tonic water is actually kind of nice to jazz up with some syrup as well. So it's really just leaving the spirit out completely and substituting it with just your favorite sparkling drink, really.
For sure. I would say too, up like your citrus component, because the liquor adds kind of, obviously a more intense flavor profile. So if you just do sweet with a sparkling water or something, it's probably going to be on the sweeter side. So I would say just if the recipe calls for half an ounce of lemon juice, maybe do an ounce of lemon juice, just to kind of create that balance in your drink. So you're not just drinking something really super sugary.
For sure.
Any appetizers come to mind to pair with any of these drinks? Like maybe something savory with something sweet or...
Appetizers, yes. So I think that with this, so with the gin fizz, you can do a really good cheddar gougere. So a gougere is basically like if you've ever had an eclair, it's like the cream puff pastry. So it's like a cooked pastry dough, but if you just Google gougere, there's a bunch of recipes that come up, but it's kind of this like creamy, cheddary, custardy, like little bite of puffed cheesy goodness, which I think pairs really well with rosemary as a flavor, and also has like really nice contrast to those bubbles. In terms of the yes, question.
It says coffee vermouth question mark.
So somebody asked a question about the coffee vermouth. So that wasn't something that was in any of our recipes. It was just kind of an addition for you to make and then have on your bar cart to be able to utilize. I think a really great use for that is in a Manhattan. So a Manhattan uses bourbon and sweet vermouth and orange. So you just completely replace the normal sweet vermouth with the coffee infused sweet vermouth. It's fantastic. You could also make a really good Nocino right now is a local Ohio liquor that you can buy from Watershed Distillery. It's a liqueur made out of black walnuts. And that's really good with whiskey, Nocino, and this coffee vermouth. It's like a really good after dinner. It's kind of like a dessert with some orange. It's delightful.
I want that.
Yes, question.
What are some of your favorite holiday tequila cocktails? Maybe we can do that with the next one.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we really ignored tequila. today.
Tequila. I mean, I think tequila and cranberry go really well. You could totally put that cranberry ginger simple syrup in tequila. You could interchange the vodka for tequila in that. I also like a take on a Paloma with a so like rosemary, grapefruit, and tequila, I think go really well together.
Yum,
So you want kind of like that festive rosemary flair.
So are we replacing the lime juice with the rosemary syrup?
So
Or-
if you were to do this, so if I would say you would take the cranberry ginger fizz recipe and do a half an ounce of tequila, 1.5 ounces of tequila, half an ounce of the rosemary simple syrup, half an ounce of lime juice, and
grapefruit.
oh wait, okay, let me start over. 1.5 ounces of tequila, 1 ounce of vodka or rosemary simple syrup, and half an ounce of lime juice or grapefruit juice, and then top it with soda.
Yes.
And then you have a take on a Paloma that's kind of festive. Too many numbers.
Do you have a favorite twist on the French 75? I love it, but if there's a variation that you love.
Yeah, so this Rosemary Fizz is kind of our take on that because it's gin based. It's got prosecco or bubbles and a simple syrup. I think you replace we replaced the simple with I guess
It's just an infused simple.
Yeah.
Really is the biggest
so.
difference.
This is kind of our take on it. You could also do, for festive. I'm trying to think what else.
Originally, we were going to do a spruce simple syrup instead of the rosemary, just to really make it extra fragrant for the holidays. But it became really challenging to find spruce tips, so we went rosemary. But if you have a handle on some spruce tips, that would be one that would get it a little bit more fragrant for the holidays.
What about mezcal? Mezcal?
Yes. So because that kind of has like a really smoky flavor profile.
Wait, really quick.
Yes.
Where do you get spruce tips?
You need to find someone with a spruce tree, which is what I tried to do.
So also, little known fact, which I think is very confusing. So a spruce tip is actually found in the spring because the spruce tip
Right.
is actually like the little, like very green part when the spruce is starting to have new life in the spring. But everybody puts spruce tips on the menu in winter, which you can't find spruce tips. So they're actually just using spruce, but spruce tips sounds cooler. So you can get spruce tips in the spring, or you can just use, honestly, you can just go and find a spruce tree and get off some
Still
trimmings.
use the greenery.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
yeah, see, I didn't even know that. And I was looking for them.
This is honestly for me.
Yeah.
So you forage it in the spring.
Yes.
Yes.
Will it last to the winter?
No.
Okay.
So it's misleading marketing because people are like, oh yeah, spruce tips are a winter thing, and they're actually it's a spring thing when you get that little bit of green. And people use spruce tips because it's a less intense flavor because it's like the beginning of the spruce tree. But I think in the winter you kind of want that intense piney flavor.
Thank God for Caroline, because I would have been still looking for spruce tips.
So mezcal, I think you could probably do. I think mezcal would do well with. It would probably do well, honestly, with if you're gonna do like a coffee vermouth. I think the smokiness of that flavor profile would do well with a coffee flavor. I think it's gonna be. You could do it with this rosemary simple syrup too, and kind of interchange that like you would. We were saying that Paloma, you could just intertwine or interchange the tequila for mezcal. I think kind of that like burnt rosemary flavor would come out, which I'm a fan of. I think it could be a little overpowering for some people because you have that like earthiness, smokiness, and kind of the fragrance. But I also think mezcal does really well with orange. I think that it's lemon and lime are a little like they're too acidic to go with it, where I think orange gives a little bit of sweetness to contrast that smokiness. So any recipe that uses tequila and its lime juice, you could probably interchange orange juice for the lime juice, and then it would maybe make the mezcal just shine a little bit more.
Maybe blood oranges in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Blood oranges would be great too.
Don't want to hit.
It's been really nice.
We're gonna bounce to this view really quick, just to say bye to everybody.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Wow, nothing like ending on like a very bad note with sound, but
Thanks so much for coming.
thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I also want to say to everybody, if you have any follow-up questions or anything like that, feel free to send them along. There'll be a follow-up email with a video of the Zoom link and this video we have here. And it's been so much fun. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Meanwhile, Jed and I are still on our second drink. Hang on, I'm just waiting.